Have you ever noticed that retirement doesn't arrive all at once? It sneaks into your life. One day you're answering phone calls, solving problems, rushing from one responsibility to another, and before you know it, the alarm clock stays silent. The house becomes quieter than you ever imagined. At first, that silence feels like a reward. You tell yourself you've earned it after decades of hard work. I believe that too. But after a little while, I realized something that nobody had warned me about. Rest is wonderful, but too much of it slowly turns into emptiness. That's why today, I want to share the 7 best retirement hobbies that have truly helped me feel younger after 60. I don't mean younger because my wrinkles disappeared or because my knees suddenly stopped complaining every morning. I mean younger in the way my mind wakes up with curiosity again, the way my heart still finds reasons to smile, and the way each morning still feels worth getting out of bed. These aren't expensive hobbies. They don't require talent. Most of them can begin today, right where you are. I'm simply sharing what has made the biggest difference in my own life, and I hope somewhere in these stories you recognize a little bit of yourself. The first hobby surprised me more than any other because I resisted it for years. It was gardening. Now, if you had met me in my younger days, you would have laughed if someone suggested I'd spend mornings talking to tomato plants or getting excited over tiny flowers blooming. I was the kind of man who believed work happened inside offices, factories, businesses, places where deadlines mattered and numbers had to add up. Dirt was just something you cleaned off your shoes. Retirement changed that. One spring morning, my wife convinced me to help her plant a few vegetables. Honestly, I expected to be bored within half an hour. Instead, something very strange happened. The garden refused to move at my speed. It didn't care that I wanted quick results. Seeds don't grow faster because you're impatient. Flowers don't bloom because you keep checking them every hour. Every day I watered, pulled weeds, and waited. Slowly I realized that wasn't wasted time. It was teaching me patience again. For decades I had been trying to control everything around me. Suddenly I found myself caring for something that would always have a mind of its own. Some seasons were generous, others were disappointing. Sometimes heavy rain destroyed what I had worked on for weeks. Sometimes a single healthy tomato tasted better than any meal I'd bought at a restaurant. The greatest gift wasn't the vegetables. It was waking up every morning knowing something outside depended on me. Even on days when I felt tired, I walked outside because those little plants couldn't water themselves. That simple responsibility gave my mornings meaning again. At our age, purpose is often much more important than excitement. The second hobby came into my life almost by accident, and today I honestly believe it has done more for my mind than anything else. I started keeping a journal. Not the kind where you write pages and pages about everything that happened during the day. I don't have the patience for that, and frankly, nobody needs a detailed report about what I had for lunch. Instead, every evening before bed, I sit down with a simple notebook and ask myself 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where could I have handled something better? What will I try to improve tomorrow? That's it. Most nights it takes less than 10 minutes. Yet those 10 minutes have become one of the most valuable parts of my day. They remind me that retirement isn't the end of personal growth. I spent 40 years improving my career, learning new skills, solving problems for other people. Why should I stop improving just because I stopped working? There are still habits to change. There is still patience to develop. There are still conversations I wish I had handled more kindly. Some evenings I write that I smiled at a stranger. Other nights I admit I lost my temper over something completely unimportant. Nobody else reads those pages. They are simply honest conversations with myself. Looking back through old notebooks, I can actually see the person I've become. That's something retirement rarely gives you unless you create it yourself. We stop receiving performance reviews from bosses, but that doesn't mean we stop growing. Sometimes the best person to evaluate your life is the quiet version of yourself sitting alone with a pen. The third hobby is one that almost every doctor recommends, but I think many people miss the real reason it matters. I'm talking about walking, not rushing, not counting steps every 5 minutes, not staring at a fitness watch, just walking. I used to walk while listening to the news, podcasts, music, anything to fill the silence. Then one day I left the house without my headphones because I'd forgotten to charge them. At first I was annoyed. Then I noticed something remarkable. I heard birds I had never paid attention to before. I realized one of my neighbors had planted roses I somehow missed for years. I noticed how different the morning light looked compared to the evening. It was as if my neighborhood had quietly changed while I wasn't looking, when in reality I had simply stopped noticing. Since then, many of my walks have been completely silent. I challenge myself to discover something new every time, no matter how familiar the path is. Sometimes it's a child learning to ride a bicycle. Sometimes it's an old tree beginning to lose its leaves. Sometimes it's simply the feeling of cool air against my face. These little observations wake the mind up. They remind you that life is still moving all around you. Retirement can become dangerous when every day feels identical. Walking with attention breaks that pattern. It teaches you that ordinary days are full of extraordinary little moments if you're willing to slow down enough to see them. The fourth hobby may sound old-fashioned, especially in a world where everyone spends hours scrolling through screens, but I cannot recommend it enough. Read books slowly. I don't mean racing through 50 books a year just so you can tell people how much you've read. I mean finding one book that speaks to your soul and living with it for weeks. When I was younger, I thought reading meant collecting information. These days, I think reading is more like having a long conversation with someone wise. Some books sit beside my chair for years. Every time I return to them, I discover something I somehow overlooked before. That's because the words haven't changed, but I have. Life has a way of giving old sentences entirely new meanings. There were chapters I ignored in my 60s that suddenly became deeply personal in my 70s. Sometimes I underline a sentence, close the book, and spend the rest of the afternoon thinking about just those few words. Isn't that remarkable? A person you never met can still influence the way you see your own life. Reading keeps your curiosity alive. It reminds you there are still ideas waiting to surprise you. The day we believe we've learned everything worth knowing is the day we truly begin growing old. As long as we remain students, age loses much of its power over us. And that naturally brings me to the fifth hobby, one that completely changed the way I looked at my own abilities after retirement. For many years, I believed learning practical skills belonged to younger people. I couldn't have been more mistaken. The fifth hobby is craftsmanship, and this is something I wish I had discovered decades earlier. Working with your hands has a way of bringing you back to reality. After retirement, many people struggle with a strange feeling of losing their usefulness. For years, someone needed your decisions, your experience, your skills. Then suddenly, the world becomes quieter. Nobody is waiting for your report. Nobody is asking you to solve the problem tomorrow morning. At first, that freedom feels wonderful. But eventually, many people begin asking themselves a painful question. Do I still have something valuable to offer? Craftsmanship answered that question for me in a very simple way. I started with small projects, nothing impressive, a few repairs around the house, simple wooden items, things that probably would have looked ordinary to someone else, but to me, they were meaningful because I created them with my own hands. When you work with wood, metal, clay, or any kind of material, there is no pretending. The material tells you the truth. If your measurement is wrong, the pieces don't fit. If you rush, the result shows your impatience. If you slow down and pay attention, the work improves. There is something very honest about that. In my younger years, I spent a lot of time dealing with opinions, expectations, and things I couldn't control. Many parts of life are complicated because people are complicated. But when you are building something with your hands, the rules are simple. You make a mistake, you learn from it, you try again, and you improve. There is no shame in starting as a beginner, even at 70 or 80 years old. In fact, I think there is something beautiful about allowing yourself to be a beginner again. One of the happiest memories I have from retirement was watching a small project become something my family actually used. It wasn't perfect. There were small flaws that only I noticed. But when someone I loved looked at it and said, "You made this yourself?" I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt needed. I felt capable. That feeling is powerful at any age. The sixth hobby is something that I believe becomes more important the older we get, and that is sharing what we know with others. I'm talking about mentorship. Now you might think, I'm retired. I spent my whole life working. Why should I spend my free time teaching someone else? I understand that feeling. I had it too. After decades of responsibilities, the idea of giving more of your time can sound exhausting. But what I discovered is that sharing your experience doesn't take something away from you. It gives something back. Every older person carries a collection of lessons that cannot be found in books. You have survived difficult seasons. You have made mistakes. You have learned how to handle disappointment, relationships, money, work, family, and loss. Those experiences have value, but knowledge that stays locked inside your own mind eventually disappears. Knowledge that is shared continues living through someone else. You don't need to become a formal teacher. Mentorship can be simple. It can mean helping a younger person understand a skill you spent years mastering. It can mean listening to a grandchild who is struggling and sharing a story from your own life. It can mean encouraging someone who is just beginning their journey. Sometimes, the most valuable thing you can give another person is not advice. Sometimes it is simply showing them that someone believes in them. I have met many older people who thought retirement meant their most meaningful years were behind them. But again and again, I saw something different happen when they started helping others. Their energy changed. Their conversations changed. They stopped saying, "My best days are over," and started saying, "I still have something to contribute." That shift can transform a person's entire outlook on aging. The seventh hobby is the one I saved for last because I believe it connects everything together. It is physical discipline, and I want to be clear about what I mean. I'm not talking about trying to become the person you were at 30 years old. That chapter is finished and there is no reason to fight that reality. I'm talking about respecting the body you have today and giving it the care it deserves. For me, this means regular movement. It might be swimming, gentle strength training, stretching, tai chi, gardening, or simply a consistent walking routine. The specific activity matters less than the commitment. The goal is not to chase youth. The goal is to remain present and capable for as long as possible. One of the hardest lessons about getting older is accepting that your body changes. Things that were easy before may require more effort now. Recovery takes longer. Some movements need more attention, but I have learned that accepting these changes does not mean giving up. In fact, acceptance allows you to make better choices. Every time I exercise, I remind myself that this body has carried me through every chapter of my life. It carried me through my working years. It carried me through difficult moments. It carried me to places I wanted to see and people I wanted to meet. The least I can do is take care of it now. Physical discipline also changes the way you think. When you move your body regularly, you prove to yourself that you are still participating in life. You are not simply waiting for time to pass. You are actively showing up for yourself. Many people fear aging because they think getting older means losing everything. But I have found that aging also brings something valuable. perspective. You begin to understand what truly matters. You stop chasing things that never brought you peace. You appreciate simple mornings. You value meaningful conversations. You realize that a good life is not measured only by achievements. It is measured by how fully you experience the days you are given. Looking back, I believe these 7 hobbies have one important thing in common. They keep us connected. Gardening connects us to nature. Journaling connects us to ourselves. Walking connects us to the world around us. Reading connects us to ideas and people across generations. Craftsmanship connects us to creation. Mentorship connects us to others. Physical discipline connects us to our own bodies. None of these activities can stop time. None of them can remove every difficulty that comes with aging, but they can change the way we experience those years. They can help us remain curious instead of closed, active instead of passive, and hopeful instead of afraid. If you are watching this and you are over 60, I want you to remember something important. Your life is not becoming smaller. It is becoming different. You may have fewer responsibilities, but you also have something many younger people are searching for every day: the freedom to choose what deserves your attention. You do not need to start 7 new hobbies tomorrow. Please don't overwhelm yourself. Choose one. Start small. Take a quiet walk. Plant something. Write a few thoughts before bed. Pick up a book. Learn a simple skill. Help someone younger. Move your body with care. Small actions repeated over time create a completely different life. Thank you so much for spending these moments with me today. I truly appreciate you being here and listening to my stories. I hope something I shared gives you a little encouragement, a little inspiration, or simply a reminder that there are still many beautiful chapters waiting for you. Take care of yourself. Keep learning. Keep moving. Keep finding reasons to wake up with curiosity in your heart. I wish you good health, peace, and many meaningful days ahead. Thank you for watching, and take care.